would not be causing more chaos. If there is, it's because we went in. It's not because we're leaving, although there may be a blip upward or downwards. But ultimately, I'm a bit more optimistic than most. Everybody who's predicting these dire things to happen are the ones who said it would be, smooth and easy and paid for, and there'd be no problems whatsoever. But I think Vietnam is an example of what can happen if you follow the advice of the founders and follow the Constitution. Only constitutional wars, don't get involved, and leave. We left under terrible circumstances. I was drafted in '63 and stayed in for 5 years, and it was a terrible, terrible war to be associated with. I didn't have to go to Vietnam, but we left. 60,000 men died, and we left, and all of a sudden we started talking to Vietnam, and we trade with Vietnam. The president of Vietnam comes here, fulfills the predictions and the advice of the founders, said, talk with people, trade with people, engage yourself, travel, but don't get involved in their entangling alliances with them, and don't get involved in their internal affairs. Don't be a nation builder, and don't police the world. The American empire is going to fail. It is in the process of failing, and I just want to get out of that empire building smoothly rather than waiting for a catastrophic event like a bankruptcy of this country. And the dollar's weak, is weak because we spend huge amounts of money for war and welfare. It's unsustainable. And I think that's one of the reasons that the younger generation is very attracted to this philosophy, is that they have become aware that the great burdens are falling on the next generation, whether it's the social security system or the abuse of government that's coming down that's going to invade our privacy, that we're getting rid of habeas corpus. Young people are realizing this, and they understand the finances. And actually, it has been a great booster to the campaign because of the young people.
I'm sorry. You sort of mentioned the concept of foreign entanglements, sort of George Washington's reference when he was departing his presidency. Clearly, that's part of the constitutionalist philosophy. Your attitude towards doing business with other countries, China, the Middle East. The Paul administration is leave them be, let them get their own houses in order. And what should the tenor of U.S. relationships be in the international?
Well, we should permit it. Trade as fast as possible and evenly as possible. I want low tariffs. Tariffs are taxes, and it doesn't tax the wealthy. It taxes the poor person who would like to buy cheap products.
So why were you opposed to NAFTA? Why was the hand so high?
Because it's government management of trade for this special interest. It's not really free trade. There are more requests from our government to NAFTA to raise tariffs. We want protectionism. If you're a big corporation, you might get some protection from that, where free trade is different. In Washington, you have managed international trade under the UN NAFTA type banner, WTO, which is just bigger government, and I don't like that. Or you have the protectionist that says that no, we shouldn't trade, high tariffs, and punish the consumer by making them pay higher prices for their products.
So I have to ask, I've asked other candidates who've come. So for a company like Google going and doing business in China, you think it was a good thing for us to begin operations?
That's right. That's your right under the Constitution, and it's your right in a free society. And it shouldn't even be. Pardon me?
Even if there are restrictions that make people uncomfortable in terms of access.
That's your business. That's your business. But the market, if some group in this country frowns upon it, they have the right to try to punish Google in the market. But they don't have the right to come to me to punish Google and say you can't do it. So your contract is your business, and some contracts aren't as good as others. But what I want to do is protect the right of freedom of contract, which is one of the elements of a free society that's crucial. Its free contract is similar to the free association of two individuals in a social sense, in a sexual sense, in a religious sense. You don't want to interfere. So in the economic sense, and I apply the same rule to economic voluntarism, that you can come together with any voluntary contract, and the government has a responsibility. If one side violates it and there's an argument, I'm still at the point where I don't think you go and shoot each other. I'd still use the courts to settle these disputes.
So immediately the idea of contracts come to mind. So clearly then your position on issues like gay marriage, you'd be supportive of that.
I'm supportive of all voluntary associations, and people can call it whatever they want.
So prostitution, contract, fine?
That would not, I think that's been around a long time, and they haven't been able to stamp that out. I wouldn't be having the prostitution police energized from Washington.
So, but and again, consistent with the libertarian philosophy, what people do on their own time, in their own way, so long as it doesn't hurt other people.
That is the rule.
That's the philosophy.
That is the rule. And of course, we should, and I do, I extend that, that if you can't hurt me and I can't hurt you and I can't take your property and we're supposed to follow the contracts and the agreements we have, the government should do too. And that's where people fall down. You know, you mean the government can't take from one and give to another? You know, and can't they ever interfere with, how often does the government interfere with voluntary contracts? What contract can you do today without government approval? And how can you use your land without government approval? How can you maintain your land without paying your rent to the government? So those things are the things I want to work away from. I want private property ownership, and I want voluntary contracts, and I would like to.
Is that at all levels of government or just the federal? So zoning regulations wouldn't be in favor of that?
Well,
Again,
as a federal level,
right,
I couldn't prohibit it. The states can do it. But if you want to argue the case of the market, you can come to Houston. The whole city of Houston was built without zoning laws. But, you know...
Consumer safety legislation?
Not legislation, but there could be consumer groups. You know, maybe there's some group out there that analyzes electronic equipment and helps me buy things.
Consumer reports.
Yeah, something like that. And good housekeeping seal of approval. We would have a lot more of those if people wouldn't become dependent on government. They became dependent on government to protect us from those who might invade our airplanes, and the Guard is let down. So if we didn't depend on the government to take care of us, we would have more consumer protection. In the ideal society, we'd have Ralph Nader working in the private sector and really helping us to protect the consumer, but he wouldn't be engaged in just promoting big government. See, but his intent would be similar. So
again, and I mean this seriously, this is a wonderful education for you. Right to bear arms must be supported.
Absolutely.
Any restrictions on that? Submachine guns?
Yeah.
Nuclear weapons?
Well, I think if there's a clear intent of blowing up a country and somebody knows about it, you know, that clear and present danger, you would be able to argue some restraint on that. But whether it's an automatic weapon or not is, I think, irrelevant. I think the gun laws today punish the minorities in the inner city because they can't defend themselves. Rich white people and people live in the suburbs, they seem to have their guns and protect themselves. So no, we need people to be allowed to protect themselves. I think the Second Amendment would have prevented 9/11. They might not even tried it if they knew every pilot had a gun, you know, and the responsibility should have been on the pilots and the airlines, not on the government telling us that you can't have a gun and you can't resist. So we set the stage. Oh, you're thinking about blowing up a few places.
So again, not just the pilots, but the airlines can let people, you know, you're welcome to bring a gun onto the plane.
The airlines have the total responsibility, just like you would here at Google. You would decide if gun ownership was permitted by the state. And you didn't want any guns on here, you have a right. You have a right to break your own laws and say there's no guns on Google property. So that'd be fine with me.
I think we probably would do that.
That'd be good.
Yeah. So again, I'm sensitive to time, but it's fascinating to me. So let's keep on going around. So contract with, you know, IRS, hand went way up there. Thought it was going to go into the studio upstairs. Violating a contract? Why so? Aren't there functions that governments should perform that require people to contribute to the cost?
Contribute, yeah, if they want to voluntarily contribute, that'd be okay.
National defense, voluntary checkoff?
You would, but you probably need to spend about 1/3 of what we're spending on the military. That's military-industrial complex. It's not defense spending.
So again, so it's not the theory of the IRS or the country. It's the idea.
No, it's the theory. The theory of the IRS is rather repugnant to me because the assumption is made that the government owns 100% of your income, and I permit you to keep 5%, 10%, or 20%. You're vulnerable. You've sold out because the government can take 80% if they want, which they did at one time. So no, I want the money to be held in the hands of people. See, I want a few young people to be energetic and come up with new ideas and go out and start new businesses. For all we know, you know, so that's what we want.
Again, in the Paul administration, how would we raise money for national defense, even if it's a small sum?
Well, we could look back and see how we did it before 1913.
And that was?
It was by a uniform tariff, but not protected tariffs. And you could have some type of excise taxes. But the big thing...
So not income taxes?
No income tax,
Gotcha.
Because that's an assumption that the government owns your life, just as a military draft and selective service assumes that the government owns people's lives.